So hi everyone, my name's Tom Cowan. I'm from Better Home Leeds / Leeds City Council. Better Home Leeds is a partnership between Leeds Council and our contractor, ONG, to install energy efficiency measures in primarily private sector homes. I'll start with a bit of context on the situation that we're currently in at the moment. So the chart on the right shows the energy cap and how it's changed in recent years. So you can see it's bumping along at around £1,000 for a few years, and then all of a sudden, winter of 2021-22, it increases to up to near £1,500, then to £2,000, and then now from October it's going to be £2,500. It's worth bearing in mind that it would have been about £3,500 had the government not decided to subsidise fuel bills quite heavily. So this is the major cause of inflation, which is currently just under 10%. And obviously that's the inflationary effects on fuel bills, and also the knock-on effects on everyone who produces food, clothing, etc., and the higher prices. From a local perspective, that shows the fuel poverty that we've had in Leeds in recent years. So in Leeds we've tended to have fuel poverty higher than the national average. That started to come down 2016, 2017. We converged in 2018 with a national average, but then last year, the latest data we got is 2019, we started to increase above the national average again. That's only going to get worse with the cost of living crisis, of course. York University estimated that there'd be around 2/3 of households in fuel poverty from this winter. That's a huge increase from the 14% that we've seen recently. So this is obviously something that we're really concerned by at the council, and we have a number of schemes to help reduce the impact on the people in the most need. I mean, if you think about it, we've got 300,000 households in Leeds. If the average person is paying £1,000 more on their fuel bill, that's £300 million that's taken out of people's pockets. It's a huge impact, and the funding we've got can only go some way to rectifying that. So one of the main schemes that we've got is Home Plus Leeds, which is a key support mechanism. It's operated by Care and Repair, Groundwork, and Aid UK. It provides low-level support, advice and low-cost measures. Relatively inexpensive measures like new light bulbs. They're sort of cheaper energy efficiency measures like draft proofing and that sort of thing. We do around 900 contacts a year from that. We also have the Household Support Fund, which is from the government, £7 million in the last year. We think it's going to be about the same amount next year as well. So that is used in Leeds to give low-income households additional payments towards their energy bills. And we support third sector organisations to directly help households in need. We've also got the Warmwell Home Scheme as well, which is part of that Home Plus Leeds project. So that's something that provides acute support to people who are really in emergency need. Say they're in poverty and the boiler breaks down, and it's the middle of winter. We take referrals through that scheme. We have grants that are worth about £3,000 to £5,000 per property. It's just discretionary funding, so it's based on referrals. So if you do know someone who's in that sort of situation, please consider a referral to the council, because we do have some funding to help people who are in the worst need. And there's new funding available through the West Yorkshire Health and Care Partnership, so that's the NHS along with the council. So we've got £339,000 that was new funding this year. It's targeted in particular at people at risk of hospitalisation due to cold-related illness, and those who have health conditions that mean they might have a higher electricity bill, so they have to run certain equipment 24 hours a day. So yeah, that's a mix of awareness raising and direct support as well to those people in the most need. And there is some government assistance as well around this. I think we all know about the £400 energy bill rebate that is coming in from October, I think, this year. There's also been the council tax rebate of worth £150. And there were some tax cuts as well that obviously benefit working households to some extent. Lower income homes will benefit less, of course, as they pay less tax in the first place. And it won't particularly help those who are reliant on benefits as well. So those are some of the support mechanisms we've got to support people directly. But really the best thing that we can do, because this money doesn't solve the cause of the problem, which is better energy efficiency, insulation and other improvements to people's homes. Those benefits are long lasting, they're not the temporary relief that we're talking about here. So a quick slide on why retrofit is so important. That diagram on that graphic on the right is called the energy hierarchy, and basically it's a way of prioritising actions related to energy in terms of their sustainability and the impact that they have. So we go from saving energy at the top, reducing demand in the first place, then energy efficiency, minimising wastage of energy once it's been produced, then renewables, making sure that when energy is produced, it's done in the least damaging way possible. Low emission, after that, for where renewables can't be used, and capturing the carbon if that's possible. And then right at the bottom is conventional fossil fuel energy. If you frame the issue in this way, it kind of helps you realise why energy efficiency and retrofit is so important. You're reducing the amount of energy you need to heat a home. It's a more straightforward way of reducing the impact. You're not having to think about the way reducing the damage in producing the energy, and it has wider benefits as well. So the household has a warmer home, you have a more comfortable home because it's not losing energy as quickly. You don't have to heat it up, and then the period when it cools down is a lot longer, so it's more comfortable. And a home that's insulated properly and the job's done well will be in better condition if it can retain a constant temperature. And yeah, there's more money in the wider economy because people are spending less on their fuel bills, and it also benefits the infrastructure as well. So we're shifting towards away from gas and towards industrial energy. The plan is to move everyone off of gas boilers. That's going to put a lot of pressure on the electrical grid. If we reduce the amount of energy that's been required in the first place, then that reduces the amount of work that has to go into it to improving the grid. But there is a drawback, of course, and that is that the initial outlay is a significant barrier. You've got a lot of measures that are quite cheap and have an impact for not a lot of money. So things like loft insulation is pretty cheap, it's a few £100s that will pay back in a pretty short period of time. Cavity wall insulation is a bit more expensive, but it also pays back really quickly. Some of the other things where for walls that don't have cavities are a lot more expensive. So external wall insulation, it's usually, just trying to think what we've been paying, it's about £12,000–13,000 per property. Solar panels, we just had the previous talk, we're looking at sort of £10,000 for those. So they do pay back, but it's over a much longer period of time. For people who you have to convince people to put their own money into this, it's a difficult sell really, because you're asking people to have faith that over that period, 10 years or longer, that the energy prices will be at a similar level to where they are now. They're not going to dramatically go down. You're relying on people taking a bit of a leap of faith because they won't have had this sort of work before, and there's not a lot of familiarity with what's being done. So we do need some incentives to encourage people who might have some money to invest into it, into actually doing so. So this slide is about the work that we've done at Leeds Council to improve energy efficiency in various projects across the city. So we've had the Green Homes Grant Local Authority Delivery, that's what that stands for. We've had almost 900 properties improved through that. There's the Social Housing Decarbonisation Fund, that's another government grant to improve social housing. We've been successfully applied for over £9 million on that, improving 630 properties, insulating them. And we've also been really successful in getting European funding, EU funding, which is the ERDF fund there. £26 million we've claimed in that in recent years. So yeah, we've had success in claiming government grant and insulating homes in Leeds, but that's changing. Obviously the EU funding, that's not going to be available because we're out of the EU. The government is replacing that, but we're not exactly sure what that's going to look like. They say the same money is going to be available, but we're not exactly sure how that's going to work. The Green Homes Grant Local Authority Delivery, that has ended as well. And with the end of that, there's not a lot that's available for something called private homes. The Green Homes Grant itself wasn't particularly successful, and the government's not announced any proposals to replace that. So yeah, I was hoping that with the budget coming out yesterday, there was going to be some good news on that front, and there wasn't anything in particular announced. Apart from the confirming the reduced energy cap, which I think we all knew about before. We understand that the energy company obligation, so that is the money that goes from the green levy on the electricity bills, that goes into a fund called the energy company obligation, and it funds energy efficiency improvements. We understand that funding is going to continue even though the green levy is being cut. So we're not sure how that's going to work, but there will be some funding available through that for fuel poverty as we understand it. So yeah, unfortunately I didn't have a huge amount on that to announce, but there is the boiler upgrade scheme, which has been mentioned previously by previous speakers. So that is something that was launched this year and is still available now, and it isn't going to be cut and is running to 2025. So that's a grant that's of £5,000 to £6,000, so £5,000 for air source, £6,000 for ground source heat pump. That sort of funding is intended to be about 50% of the cost. So the government, I'm not sure if it's going to work out that way in reality. I think prices have been going up a bit, but the government wanted to have a scheme where the householder puts in 50%, they put in 50%, to really incentivise that switch to ground source, which is the government's backing quite heavily. They want to install millions of heat pumps over the next 10 years. They see this as the main way in which we'll move away from gas-powered heating in this country. So yeah, whether a heat pump saves you money, it does depend on the heating system it's replacing. So a recently installed gas boiler is probably going to work out cheaper than a heat pump with electricity prices where they are at the moment. If there's somewhere decoupling the price of electricity from the price of natural gas, that would make a big impact, because at the moment, even though we've got 40% renewable electricity in this country, it's pegged to the price of natural gas, which doesn't make a huge amount of sense, but that's probably a longer term ambition. But if you're on an inefficient old boiler, a heat pump will save you money, and electric storage heaters in particular. If electric storage heaters, a heat pump should be a lot cheaper. Saving, I mean, the Energy Savings Trust estimate between 1,000 and 2,000 almost, depending on the efficiency of those old storage heaters. So it's a particularly good option if you're on existing electric heating. There are some exclusions or some conditions that you have to meet. So you need to have a current EPC, and you need to have fulfilled any requirements around loft and cavity insulation around that in particular. It's for private sector housing as well. So if you're a social, for a council tenant or a housing association tenant, then you won't be eligible for this, unfortunately. But there are there are other funds that the council is using to insulate our own properties. So as Leeds City Council, we're not involved in this scheme in particular. Applications aren't carried out through us. I mean, we can provide a little bit of advice, but we would be directing you to the MCS website, because you need an MCS accredited installer in order to qualify for this scheme. So the thing to do if you're interested is go to mcscertified.com. They have, you can put in your details, your address details, and it'll come up with a list of installers in your areas, or of course get talking to the guys here who are on the scheme and are able to provide some more. So yes, that's it from me. Thanks very much for listening.